Hello, everyone. Sorry for that abrupt stop on the part two. Wasn't watching the time, and my software decided that video was long enough. So, to get right back to where we were, Namu Myoho Renge Kyo, Namu Myoho Renge Kyo, Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. This Saha world occupies the lowest position among all the worlds of the 10 directions. You have to understand as you're reading this, he's not describing other planets, what he's talking about is in the vernacular of Shakyamuni's teachings. And as I've said before, when Shakyamuni talks about worlds, bodhisattvas, Buddhas, he's creating terms that are relatable to his audience. In reality, all of this that he's describing are thoughts that go through the samsaric mind. That if you could see or perceive with your Buddha mind would just be all of the ether, the space, the temporariness of the thingness that we're conjuring in our mind without attachment. And so what he's trying to do while he's teaching people in the samsaric mind, because they're not in the Buddha mind like he is trying to use devices and imagery and thoughts that are consistent with the deluded mind in order to lead them to greater perception of what's going on in their head. So, having said that, all the persons in the worlds of the 10 directions who have committed any of the 10 evil acts, the 5 cardinal sins, the grave offenses of slandering the correct teaching, or other terrible crimes, and have been driven out by the Buddhas, thus come ones of those worlds, have been brought together here in this Saha land by the thus come one Shakyamuni. He's using the images of Shakyamuni himself to demonstrate where Shakyamuni's position is with regard to all of these other creations in order to illustrate the structure of our human mind. These people, having fallen into the 3 evil paths, people being a term that probably should find a better term, it's not these people so much as it is the mental dispositions that some of us have. When he talks about the evil acts or evil paths and those kind of things, they are all behaviors that we entertain. Some of us more than others. It's karmic, but he's just labeling all these things generally. So these people, having fallen into the 3 evil paths, or the great citadel of the hell of incessant suffering, and there duly suffered for their offense, have been reborn in the realm of human or heavenly beings. But because they still retain certain vestiges of their former evil behavior, they are inclined to easily commit some further offenses by slandering the correct teachings or speaking contemptuously of persons of wisdom. Thus, for example, Shariputra, though he had attained the status of an arhat, at times gave way to anger. Pirindavasa, though he had freed himself from the illusions of thought and desire, displayed an arrogant mind, while Nanda, though he had renounced all sexual attachment, continued to dwell on the thought of sleeping with a woman. Even these disciples of the Buddha, though they had done away with delusions, still retained their vestiges. How much more so must this be the case, therefore, with ordinary people? Yet the thus come one, now that's a statement that's actually the most revealing of all, is that's very earthbound what he just talked about. If you've been practicing the Bodhisattva way, or even the Arhat way, or the way of a Tripitaka Buddha, and you've managed to rid yourself of attachments to sexual desires, Because we've done it so long, even though we're unattached, we still have effects to work out from those causes we've made in this lifetime, in previously. Even though we've rid ourselves of attachment to it, we may still be preoccupied with thoughts about it, not so much attached to getting it done, but roving thoughts that are vestiges of little tendrils of attachments, if you will. Still think about it, or think about women in that way when we approach them. Shakyamuni entered this Saha world with the title One Who Can Endure. He is so called because he does not berate its people for the slanders they all commit, but shows them forbearance. These then are the special qualities possessed by Shakyamuni Buddha, qualities that the other Buddhas lack. Amida Buddha and the other various Buddhas were determined to make compassionate vows. For this reason, though they felt ashamed to do so, they made their appearance in this Saha world, Amida Buddha proclaiming his 48 vows, and Medicine Master Buddha his 12 great vows, perceiver of the world of sounds, and the other bodhisattvas who live in other lands also did likewise. So see, again, don't confuse this with actual Buddhas, but these are impersonages of people who've accomplished different mind states and still have to make vows to accomplish their full enlightenment. He's talking about us. So if you're going to worship, I shouldn't use that word, but devoutly and resolutely follow the teachings of Buddha, Shakyamuni, and the Buddha mind, bigger than Shakyamuni is also just a label too. It's a convenience for describing his appearance, if you will, his apparition of being human in this life, in order solely to teach the way. So if you don't follow him, or you choose something else of his teachings to follow, what you're really doing is just following partial ideas. Or if you make the mistake of believing that these Buddhas and Bodhisattvas that he talks about are actual people, then you're following his subordinates, creations of his mind to inspire the samsaric mind to get to the Buddha mind. All of it points to Shakyamuni Buddha not even being the object of devotion, but rather what he's teaching you to achieve. It isn't Shakyamuni, it's the Buddha mind, which we all are. You have a Buddha mind, and it's no different than my Buddha mind. In fact, they're the same Buddha mind. We are all trying to get to the Buddha mind, from which everything is manifested in the samsaric existence. That's the oneness people have trouble understanding. Do you see what I mean? In the Buddha mind, we are all the same. It's only the mind of differentiation, distinctions, that seeks to separate us from it and make us self and other, duality. All right. When the Buddhas are viewed in terms of the unchanging equality of their enlightenment, there are no distinctions to be made among them. But when they are viewed in terms of the ever-present differences among their preaching, then one should understand that each of them has his own realm among the worlds of the 10 directions, again, samsaric, and that they distinguish between those with whom they have already had some connection and those with whom they have no such connection. Do you see how knowing or having studied the two mind aspect, the Bodhisattva practice, the Lankavatara, the different Mahayana texts and the early texts, one can start to perceive how the teaching actually is constructed and what it indicates, even within the same sentence, the shift between the Buddha mind and the many minds, which occurs only in samsara. The 16 royal sons of the Buddha, great universal wisdom excellence, each took up residence in a different one of the lands of the 10 directions, and there led their respective disciples to salvation. The thus come one, Shakyamuni, who had been one of these sons, appeared in this Saha world. We ordinary people, too, have been born into the Saha world. Therefore, we must not in any way turn away from the teachings of the thus come one Shakyamuni. But people all fail to realize this. If they would look carefully into the matter, they would understand that, as the Lotus Sutra says, I, Shakyamuni, am the only person who can rescue and protect others, and that and that they must not cut themselves off from the helping hand of the thus come one Shakyamuni. For this reason, all the living beings in this Saha world, if they detest the sufferings of birth and death, and wish to have an object of devotion to which they can pay respect, should first of all fashion images of Shakyamuni Buddha in the form of wooden statues and paintings, and make these their objects of devotion. Then, if they still have strength left over, they may go on to fashion images of other Amida Buddha and other Buddhas. Yet, when the people of this world today, and this is in his time, 13th century, yet when the people of this world today, being unpracticed in the sacred way, come to fashion or paint images of a Buddha, they give priority to those of Buddhas of other than Shakyamuni. This does not accord either with the intentions of those other Buddhas or with the intention of the thus come one Shakyamuni himself, and is moreover at variance with secular propriety. The great king Udayana, when he carved his image of the red sandalwood, made it of no other Buddha, and the painting offered to King 1000 Stupas was likewise of the thus come one Shakyamuni. But people nowadays base themselves upon various Mahayana sutras, and because they believe that the particular sutra they rely on is superior to all others, they accordingly relegate Shakyamuni Buddha to a secondary position. Oops. Thus, all the masters of the true word school, convinced that the Mahavajrayana Sutra surpasses all other sutras, regard the thus come one Mahavajrayana, who is described therein as the supreme Buddha, as the one with whom they have a special connection. The Nembutsu priests, on the other hand, putting all their faith in the Meditation Sutra, which weren't even the words of Buddha, look upon Amida Buddha as the one who has some special connection with this Saha world of ours. Because the people of our time in particular have mistaken the erroneous doctrines of Shantou, who wrote the Meditation Sutra, and Honen for correct teachings, and taken the 3 Pure Land sects or sutras as their guide, 8 or 9 out of every 10 temples that they build have Amida Buddha enshrined as the principal object of devotion. And in the dwellings of both lay believers and priests, in houses by the tens and the hundreds or the thousands, the image hall attached to the residence is dedicated to Amida Buddha. Moreover, among the 1,000 or 10,000 paintings and images of Buddhas to be found in a single household today, the great majority of Amida Buddha. Yet people who are supposed to be wise in such matters see these things happening and do not regard them unfortunate. On the contrary, they find such proceedings quite in accord with their own views, and consequently greet greet them with nothing but praise and admiration. Paradoxically, as it may seem, evil people who have not the least understanding of the principle of cause and effect, and who are not dedicated to any Buddha whatsoever, would appear to be the ones free from error with respect to Buddhism. Shakyamuni, the world-honored one who is our father and mother and is endowed with the 3 virtues of sovereign, teacher, and parent, is the very one who encourages us the people driven out by all other Buddhas, saying, I am the only person who can rescue and protect others. The debt of gratitude we owe him is deeper than the ocean, weightier than the earth, vaster than the sky. Though we were to pluck out our 2 eyes and place them before him as an offering until there were more eyes than there are stars in the sky, though we were to strip off our skins and spread them out by the hundreds of thousands of tens of thousands until they blanketed the ceiling of heaven, though we were to give him our tears as offerings of water and present him with flowers for the space of 1,000, 10,000 millions of kalpas, though we were to offer him our flesh and blood for innumerable kalpas, until our flesh piled up like mountains and our blood overflowed like vast seas, we could never repay a fraction of the debt we owe to this Buddha. But the scholars of our time cling to distorted views, even though they may be wise men who have mastered all the 80,000 doctrines of Buddhism and committed to memory the 12 divisions of the scriptures, and who strictly observe all the Mahayana and Hinayana precepts. If they turn their backs on this principle, then one should know that they cannot avoid falling into evil paths. As an example of what I mean, let us look at the Tripitaka master Shan Wu Wei. Now we get to the meat of the title of this writing, where he's really going to present proof of what he's been prescribing. Shan Wu Wei, the founder of the True Word School in China. The True Word School in China. He was a son of King Buddha Seed, the monarch of the kingdom of Udayana in India. Shakyamuni Buddha left his father's palace at the age of 19 to take up the religious life, but this Tripitaka master abdicated the throne at the age of 13 and thereafter traveled through the 70 states of India, journeying 90,000 ri on foot and acquainting himself with all the various sutras, treatises, and schools of Buddhism. In a kingdom in northern India, he stood at the foot of the stupa erected by King Golden Grains, gazed up at the heavens, and uttered prayers, whereupon there appeared in midair the womb realm mandala, with the thus come one Mahavarachana seated in its center. He had a vision. Shan Wu Wei, out of his compassion, determined to spread the knowledge of this teaching to remote regions, and thereupon traveled to China, where he transmitted his secret doctrines to Emperor Xuanzong. At the time of the great drought, he offered up prayers for rain, and rain fell from the sky within 3 days. This Tripitaka master was thoroughly familiar with the seed characters, representing the 1,200 and more honored ones, their august forms, and their samayas. Today, all the followers of the True Word School belong to Toji, and the other True Word the temples in Japan look upon themselves as disciples of the Tripitaka master Shan Wu Wei. But the time came when the Tripitaka master suddenly died. Thereupon a number of wardens of hell appeared, bound him with 7 iron cords, and led him off to the palace of Yama, which, if you're not familiar with Yama, was throughout Asia, many different belief systems, from Hindu to, well, hardly anything Hindus don't believe, but anyway, is a representative of earthly pain, earthly hell, earthly negative energy. The Lord of Hell is what he calls him here. This was a very strange thing to happen. For what fault did he deserve to be censured in this way? In the life he had just lived, he might perhaps have committed some of the 10 evil acts, but surely he had not been guilty of any of the 5 cardinal sins, and as for his past existences, in view of the fact that he had become the ruler of a great kingdom, he must have strictly observed the 10 good precepts and dutifully served 500 Buddhas. What fault, then, could he have committed? Moreover, at the age of 13, he had voluntarily relinquished his position as king and entered the religious life. His aspiration for enlightenment was unequaled throughout the entire land of Jambudvipa. Surely such virtue should have cancelled out any major or minor offenses that he might have committed in his past, present, or previous lives. In addition, he had made a thorough study of all the various sutras, treatises, and schools that were propagated in India at the time, and that fact too should have served to atone for any possible faults. In addition to all this, the esoteric true words doctrines are different from the other teachings of Buddhism. They declare that though one may make no more than a single mudra with the hands, or utter no more than a single mantra with the mouth, even the gravest offenses accumulated throughout the 3 existences of past, present, and future will thereby, without fail, be eradicated. Moreover, they said that all the offenses and karmic hindrances that one may have created during the space of innumerable kotis of kalpas will all be extinguished the moment one looks upon the esoteric mandalas. How much more should this be true, therefore, in the case of the Tripitaka master Shan Wu Wei, who had memorized all the mudras and mantras pertaining to the 1200 and more honored ones, who had understood as clearly as if it were reflected in a mirror the practice of contemplation for attaining Buddhahood in one's present form, and who, when he underwent the ceremony of anointment before the diamond realm and womb realm mandalas, had become in effect Mahavajracana, the king of enlightenment himself. Why then should such a man be summoned before King Yama and subjected to censure? I, Nichiren, had resolved to embrace the teaching that is supreme among the 2 divisions of Buddhism, the exoteric and the esoteric, and that allows us to free ourselves from the sufferings of birth and death with the greatest ease. Therefore, I acquainted myself with the esoteric true word doctrines in general, and made inquiries concerning this master of Shan Wu Wei. But no one was able to give a satisfactory answer to the question I have posed above. If this man could not escape the evil paths, then how could any of the true word teachers of our time, let alone the priests and lay believers who had performed no more than a single mudra or uttered no more than a single mantra, hope to avoid them? Having examined the matter in detail, I concluded that there were 2 errors for which Shan Wu Wei was summoned before King Yama for censure. First of all, the Mahavajracana Sutra not only is inferior to the Lotus Sutra, but cannot even compare to the Nirvana, Flower Garland, or Wisdom Sutra. And yet, Shan Wu Wei maintained that it was superior to the Lotus Sutra, thus committing the error of slandering the correct teaching. Second, although the Thus Come One Mahavajracana is an emanation of Shakyamuni Buddha, here we go again. Emanation, what does that mean? It's an idea, an encapsulation of a certain kind of thinking that Shakyamuni used as a skillful tool to teach. It's not a thing. An emanation of Shakyamuni, Shan Wu Wei held to the biased view that Mahavajracana is in fact superior to Shakyamuni Buddha. He's an idea, not a thing, not a real law, not Myoho Renge Kyo. Shakyamuni is a bodhisattva who's attained the Buddha way. And he exists in the Saha world in order to teach us. When we've learned enough, he leaves. But he is not the Buddha. He is an emanation of the Buddha mind. the one that is in human form only as a bodhisattva to help us understand what it is, the Buddha mind. And in his teaching in the Saha world, he creates these personages that are just mental perceptions to help us understand. They are not the originators of the teaching. They are not the originators of the Buddha mind. They simply are projections of aspects of the Buddha mind and the samsaric mind to help our conditioned human samsaric minds to further expand our understanding of the Buddha mind. Do you see what I'm saying? Second, although the Daskam one Mahavajana is an emanation of Shakyamuni Buddha, Shan Wu Wei held to the biased view that Mahavajana was in fact superior to Shakyamuni Buddha, the Lord of teachings. The offense of such slanders is so grave that no one who commits them could avoid falling into the evil path, even though he should practice the teachings of the 1200 and more honored ones over a period of innumerable kalpas. Shan Wu Wei committed these errors, and retribution for which is very difficult to escape, and therefore, although he performed the mudras and the mantras of the various honored ones, it was to no avail. But when he merely recited those words from the simile and parable chapter in the second volume of the Lotus Sutra that read, "Now this threefold world is all my Shakyamuni's domain, and the living beings in it are my children, all my children. Now this place is beset by many pains and trials. I am the only person who can rescue and protect others." He escaped from the iron cords that bound him. Be that as it may, the true word teachers who came after Shan Wu Wei all maintained that the Mahavajana Sutra not only is superior to the various other sutras, but surpasses even the Lotus Sutra. In addition, there were other persons who have declared that the Lotus Sutra is also inferior to the Flower Garland Sutra. Though these groups differ in what they maintain, they all are alike in being guilty of slandering the correct teachings. The Tripitaka master Shan Wu Wei held the prejudiced opinion that both the Lotus Sutra and the Mahavajana Sutra should be regarded with great respect, since they agree in the profound principles that they embody, but that because the Lotus Sutra mentions nothing about mudras and mantras, it is inferior to the Mahavajana Sutra. What did I say earlier? You know what mudras are? They're hand positions. Mantras, chanting. Those things, to a human mind, sound like palpable instruction. Do you see? The Lotus Sutra doesn't tell you to position your hands a certain way. It doesn't tell you to chant several different magical chants. There are, in the last part, some magical incantations that are mentioned, but these have to do with certain groups of people who were at the ceremony, not the practice of Buddhism. Do you understand? So, once again, because the Lotus Sutra doesn't have instruction, it's thought to be less useful. That's a profoundly simple but profound misunderstanding of the body of the teachings. You can't take them apart like that. You have to understand what came before what, and the position of the Lotus Sutra is the penultimate words of Buddha. And in it, he's referring in entirety the whole body of his teachings, all the instructions in there. Once you learn how to walk, and then you learn how to run, and then you learn how to sprint, which involves breathing and all kinds of other things, and you talk about that exhaustively, when the decision is made to go for the Olympic gold, the coach isn't out there telling the person how to walk. He's not out there saying, okay, now you remember how to run? No, he's just saying, use your skills fully, completely, and direct them toward the goal. Not even winning. That is not even the subject anymore. Be single-mindedly focused on the gold medal. Because everything you've learned so far has taught you how to get there. I don't need to teach you that anymore. I just need to remind you to focus on the medal. Don't even focus on the people around you. You are the medal. Go. Get it. That's the Lotus Sutra. It doesn't need to re-explain how to hold your hands, sit properly, meditate, what to meditate about, how. It doesn't need to be instructional. I hope this is clear by now. Okay. The Tripitaka Master Shan Wu Wei held the prejudiced opinion that both the Lotus Sutra, I read that already, the true word teachers after him, and Lotus Sutra, longer void, being the Mahavajracana Sutra does not originally contain any mention of the profound principle of the 3,000 realms in a single moment of life. Now he's getting particular. This principle is confined to the Lotus Sutra alone, but the Tripitaka Master Shan Wu Wei proceeded to steal and appropriate this profound principle that the great teacher Tendai had put forth on the basis of his reading of the Lotus Sutra centuries earlier, incorporating it into his own interpretation of the Mahavajracana Sutra. He then asserted that the mudras and mantras of the Mahavajracana Sutra, which were originally expounded merely to lend adornment to the Lotus Sutra, were the very elements that make the Mahavajracana Sutra superior to the Lotus. Shan Wu Wei was putting forth a distorted view when he stated that the Lotus and the Mahavajracana Sutras were equal in principle, and he was likewise stating an erroneous view when he claimed that the Mahavajracana Sutra was superior by reason of its mantras and mudras. This is like the case of a foolish and lowly man who looks upon his 6 sense organs as his personal treasures, though in fact they belong to his Lord. Consequently, he is led into all manner of erroneous conduct. He should keep this example in mind when interpreting the sutras, because the doctrines set forth in inferior sutras serve only to adorn the sutra that is truly superior. I, Nichiren, was a resident of Seichoji on Mount Kiyosumi in Tojo village in the province of Awa. From the time I was a small child, I prayed to the Bodhisattva Space Treasury, asking that I might become the wisest person in all Japan. The Bodhisattva transformed himself into a venerable priest before my very eyes, and bestowed upon me a jewel of wisdom as bright as the morning star. No doubt as a result, I was able to gain a general mastery of the principal teachings of the 8 older schools of Buddhism in Japan, as well as those of the Zen and Nembutsu schools. During the 16 or 17 years since the 5th year of 1253 or so of the Kencho era until the present, the 7th year of the Munen era, 1270, I have leveled many criticisms against the Zen and Nembutsu schools. For this reason, the scholars of those schools have risen up like hornets and flocked together like clouds, though as a matter of fact, their arguments can be demolished with hardly more than a word or two. Even the scholars of the Tendai and True Word schools, losing sight of the principles laid down by their own schools, concerning which teachings are to be adopted and which discarded, have come to hold positions identical to those of the Zen or Nembutsu school. Because their lay followers hold to such beliefs, they have thought it best to lend support to these schools and their erroneous views by declaring that the Tendai and True Word teachings are the same as those of the Nembutsu and Zen schools. As a result, they join the others in attempting to refute me. But although they might appear to refute me, in fact they are simply destroying their own Tendai and True Word teachings. It is a shameful, shameful thing they are doing. The fact that I have, in this way, been able to discern the errors of the various sutras, treatises, and schools is due to the benefit of Bodhisattva Space Treasury and is owed to my former teacher, Dozenbo. Even a turtle, we are told, knows how to repay a debt of gratitude. So, how much more so should human beings? To repay the debt that I owe to my former teacher, Dozenbo, I desire to spread the teachings of the Buddha on Mount Kiyosumi and lead my teacher to enlightenment. But he is a rather ignorant man, and in addition, he is a believer in the Nembutsu. So I did not see how he could escape the three evil paths. Moreover, he is not the kind of person who would listen to my words of instruction. Nevertheless, in the first year of the Buenin era, 1264, on the 14th day of the 11th month, I met with him at the priest's lodgings of Hanbusa in Saijo. At that time, he said to me, quote, I have neither wisdom nor any hope for advancement to important position. I am an old man with no desire for fame, and I claim no eminent priest of Nembutsu as my teacher. But because this practice has become so widespread in our time, I simply repeat, like others, the words Namu Amida Butsu. In addition, though it was not my idea originally, I have had occasion to fashion 5 images of Amida Buddha. This perhaps is due to some karmic habit that I formed in a past existence. Do you suppose that as a result of these faults, I will fall into hell? End quote. At that time, I certainly had no thought of quarreling with him. But because of the earlier incident with the lay priest Tojo Saimon Renshi, I had not seen my teacher for more than 10 years, and thus it was in a way as thought we had become estranged and were at odds. I thought that the proper and courteous thing would be to reason with him in mild terms and to speak in a gentle manner. On the other hand, when it comes to the realm of birth and death, neither young or old know what fate awaits them, and it occurred to me that I might never again have another opportunity to meet with him. I had already warned Dozenbo's elder brother, the priest Gogibo Gisho, that he was destined to fall into the hell of incessant suffering if he did not change his ways. And they say that his death was far worse than what he had hoped. When I considered that my teacher Dozenbo might meet a similar fate, I was filled with pity for him, and therefore made up my mind to speak to him in very strong terms. I explained to him that by making 5 images of Amida Buddha, he was condemning himself to fall 5 times into the hell of incessant suffering. The reason for this, I told him, was that the Lotus Sutra, wherein the Buddha says that he is now honestly disregarding expedient means, states that the thus come one, Shakyamuni, is our father, while Amida Buddha is our uncle. Anyone who would fashion no less than 5 images of his uncle and make offerings to them, and yet not fashioning a single image of his own father, how could he be regarded as anything but unfilial? Even hunters in the mountains or fishermen who cannot tell east from west and do not perform a single pious act are guilty of less offenses than such a person. Nowadays, those who seek the way no doubt hope for a better existence in their future lives. Yet they cast aside the Lotus Sutra and Shakyamuni Buddha while never failing even for an instant to revere Amida Buddha and call upon his name. What kind of behavior is this? Though they may appear to the eye to be pious people, I do not see how they can escape the charge of rejecting their own parent and devoting themselves to a stranger. A completely evil person, on the other hand, has never given his allegiance to any Buddhist teaching at all, and so has not committed the fault of rejecting Shakyamuni Buddha. Therefore, if the proper circumstances should arise, he might very well, in time, come to take faith in Shakyamuni. Those who follow the erroneous doctrines of Shantou, Honen, and the Buddhist scholars of our time, making Amida Buddha their object of devotion, and dedicating themselves entirely to the practice of calling upon his name, I do not believe that they will ever renounce their erroneous views and give their allegiance to Shakyamuni Buddha and the Lotus Sutra, even though lifetime after lifetime throughout countless kalpas should pass. Accordingly, the Nirvana Sutra, which was preached in the grove of sal trees just before Shakyamuni Buddha's passing, states that there will appear frightful persons whose offenses are graver than the 10 evil acts or the 5 cardinal sins, ichantikas, or persons of incorrigible disbelief, and those who slander the correct teachings. We also read there that such persons will be found nowhere else but among the company of wise men who observe the 250 precepts, wrap their bodies in the 3 robes of a Buddhist monk, and carry a begging bowl. I explained all this in detail to Dozenbo at the time of our meeting, though it did not appear that he completely understood, nor did the other persons present on that occasion seem to understand. Later, however, I received word that Dozenbo had come to take faith in the Lotus Sutra. I concluded that he must have renounced his earlier distorted views, and had hence become a person of sound belief, a thought that filled me with joy. When I also heard that he had fashioned an image of Shakyamuni Buddha, I could not find words to express my emotion. It may seem as though I spoke to him very harshly at the time of our meeting, but I simply explained things as they are set forth in the Lotus Sutra, and that is no doubt why he has now taken such action. It is said that good advice grates on the ears, just as good medicine tastes bitter. Now I, Nichiren, have repaid the debt of gratitude that I owe to my teacher, and I am quite certain that both the Buddhas and the gods will approve of what I have done. I would like to ask that all I have said here be reported to Dozenbo. Even though one may resort to harsh words, if such words help the person to whom they are addressed, then they are worthy to be regarded as truthful words and gentle words. Similarly, though one may use gentle words if they harm the person to whom they are addressed, they are in fact deceptive words, harsh words. The Buddhist doctrines preached by scholars these days are regarded by most people as gentle words, truthful words, but in fact they are all harsh words and deceptive words. I say this because they are at variance with the Lotus Sutra, which embodies the Buddha's true intention. On the other hand, when I proclaim that the practitioners of the Nembutsu will fall to the hell of incessant suffering, or declare that the Zen and True Word schools are likewise in error, people may think I am uttering harsh words, but in fact I am speaking truthful and gentle words. As an example, I may point to the fact that Dozenbo has embraced the Lotus Sutra and fashioned an image of Shakyamuni Buddha, actions that came out because I spoke harshly to him. And the same thing holds true for all the people of Japan. 10 or more years ago, virtually everyone was reciting the Nembutsu, but now, out of 10 persons, you will find that 1 or 2 chant only Namu Myoho Renge Kyo, while 2 or 3 recite it along with the Nembutsu. And even among those who recite the Nembutsu exclusively, there are those who have begun to have doubts, and so in their hearts believe in the Lotus Sutra. Some have even begun to paint or carve images of Shakyamuni Buddha. All this, too, has come about because I have spoken harsh words. This response is like the fragrant sandalwood trees that grow among the groves of foul-smelling aranda trees, or lotus blossoms that rise from the mud. Thus, when I proclaim that the followers of the Nembutsu will fall into the hell of incessant suffering, the wise men of our day, who are in fact no wiser than cattle or horses, may venture to attack my doctrines, but in truth they are like scavenger dogs barking at the lion, or foolish monkeys laughing at the god Shaka. Now, there's a background on this, but um, I think just reading it in light of our study together, um, I think that's what's critical to know about the Buddha teaching. Uh, it makes me respect Nichiren more. Um, he too speaks, like the Lotus Sutra, um, of the general practice and how it should work, as opposed to how mistaken views can obfuscate that, unfortunately. Um, but you can tell just by reading one of his writings of this sort that he has a tremendous reservoir of research, knowledge, admits his own building of his knowledge, uses what he knows in order to demonstrate his skill and the correct intention of Shakyamuni. Yeah, you must understand my dedication to study because it produces so many little ahas, little sparks of I get it, I get that, I understand what that means. Um, for me, that's essential to ever deepen my dedication, my resolve, my security in my practice. So with that, got plenty of time left over, but I won't just babble through it. I want to thank you for watching these three-part series on this one writing of Nichiren's. I hope I created some little aha moments in there, or at least some opportunities for you to go, what did you say? And go and research it. If I can inspire you to study more or study things that you didn't even know were there, um, perfect. Um, if what I said during this series um, heightened your resolve in any way, took away any doubts you might have, um, represented the information in a way that made more sense to you, whatever. Um, I love hearing that from people. I often do. But I'm also interested in hearing from you that there are areas where you're not sure you understand what I said, or I said something that seemed to contradict something else I said, or that there was a problem in general with what I was talking about. I want to hear that too. I need to hear that because it helps me do more research and answer those questions for myself, and then I'll share them with you. Because if there's something confusing, that's my whole reason for doing this. So I'm not going to get into that discussion all over again. You've heard it enough. Again, I so much appreciate your participation in this. And if you like, if you can go to the Patreon site and help me support this endeavor with anything, that would be tremendously appreciated. Have a great day. Thanks again for being here. And let's do Sancho. Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. Thank you so much.